They thought the dark would kill you, thought if they isolated you long enough, shut every door, took every light, every name, every ounce of dignity, you'd break, fold, fade. They didn't know you were born in it, molded by it. They didn't know the silence wasn't your weakness, it was your training ground. While they celebrated your disappearance, you were down there building something monstrous, not crying, not begging, becoming. They thought the absence of applause meant failure, that if no one was watching, you wouldn't rise. But you weren't made for the stage. You were made for the shadows, for war, for the kind of pain that turns bones into weapons and breath into prophecy. They forgot that pressure doesn't crush everyone. Sometimes it forges kings. Sometimes it wakes up demons that were patiently waiting for the right time to tear the world back open. You didn't need rescuing. You didn't wait for help. You adapted. You let the darkness teach you discipline, hunger, and silence so loud it drowned out your past. You grew fangs without an audience. You became unrecognizable, and now that you've emerged, they don't know what to do with you because you're not returning to prove a point. You're here to dominate. You didn't come back to fit in. You came back to level the whole damn game. And when they see you now, calm, still untouchable, they feel it. That dread in their gut that says, we went too far because you're not who you used to be. That version died quietly, and you didn't attend the funeral. You walked out of the dark reborn, stronger, colder, louder, without ever raising your voice. You are not the same. You are the one they'll regret underestimating for the rest of their lives. They buried you, but they forgot. Some things grow better in the dark. Now they flinch when they hear your name. Not because you bark, but because you don't have to. The silence you carry is heavier than their noise. You don't come with warnings. You are the warning. They remember the version of you they pushed, poked, and ignored. The one with open hands and open heart. But this you, this version walks with scars instead of sympathy, precision instead of permission. You're not out here to play nice. You're out here to remind them what happens when the forgotten stop waiting to be remembered and start taking what they were denied. You don't need vengeance. You are the consequence. The return they swore would never happen. You're what crawled out of every insult, every betrayal, every locked door. They hoped you would disappear forever. What they didn't realize is, the dark raised you better than they ever could. Down there, you weren't distracted. You weren't weak. You were listening, watching, strengthening. And by the time they remembered your name, it was already too late. You were no longer a person to overlook. You were a reckoning. They'll say you're cold now, that you changed. That power corrupted you. Let them, because they'll never understand what it takes to survive the kind of silence that tries to erase you. They'll never feel what it's like to lose everything, and not even flinch. They didn't walk through hell barefoot. You did. And you didn't come back with smoke. You came back with fire in your lungs and steel in your spine. So let them talk. Let them wonder if it's still safe to test you. You already know the answer. The same darkness that tried to consume you now walks behind you like a loyal dog. You don't fear it. You own it. And anyone foolish enough to challenge what you've become, well, they'll learn what you did in the dark. You don't raise your voice now because your presence does all the screaming. You don't argue, don't justify, don't explain the hell you endured. You embody it. They see it in your walk, in the calm behind your eyes. The kind of calm that only comes from losing everything and standing back up with blood in your mouth and purpose in your bones. You don't need to prove you're dangerous. You are the aftermath. You are what happens when survival turns into strategy, when pain turns into power, when the buried one starts digging in the other direction, up. You were supposed to break. That's what they were counting on. That's what they needed, because your destruction made them feel safe. But instead, you adapted. You evolved in silence until the darkness became your cathedral and your pain became your prayer. Now you move like a ghost with unfinished business. They can't read you, can't predict you, can't stop you. Because you're no longer playing a role. They're witnessing the real you, unfiltered, untamed, unapologetic. They used to say your name with a smirk. Now it tastes like regret in their mouths. They call you heartless. But it's not that you don't feel. It's that you no longer bleed on command. You don't cry for people who threw stones while pretending to hand you water. You don't kneel for liars wearing friendly faces. You learned the difference between allies and audience. And now, you've got no patience left for anything less than real. You came back not to remind them who you were, but to show them who you became. And when they see the beast born from that silence, the one who learned to breathe without air, to fight without hope, to win without mercy, all they can do is pray it never sets its eyes on them. Because this time there are no warnings, just outcomes. This time, there's no curtain call, no dramatic return, no grand announcement, just footsteps in the dark that sound like judgment, like karma dragging chains. You don't need a stage to perform. The world is your battleground now. Every room you enter, every soul that doubted you, they feel it. That invisible shift in the air, that tightness in the chest, that sinking feeling like something ancient just walked in with unfinished business. You're not chasing validation. You're not interested in applause. You're the one they hope doesn't notice them. You don't waste breath anymore. You don't argue with fools. You don't revisit graves. You build from them. Because when you were buried, you didn't die. You disappeared. And in that silence, they thought it was over. They thought you'd surrendered. But you were underground, learning how to resurrect as something entirely new. No longer soft, no longer safe. You came back a lesson, not a second chance. And now their fear is quiet. It shows up in nervous laughter, in sideways glances, in sudden respect they never had before. Because deep down, they know. They remember what they did when they thought you were weak. And now they look at you and see the consequences of their own cowardice walking on two legs. You didn't just rise, you rewrote the story. You ripped out every page that painted you as a victim and carved your truth in stone. So keep walking, keep watching. Let them flinch, let them trip over their fake smiles and watered down apologies, because you've already outgrown their world. You're not here to explain, you're here to exist above it all, a ghost of who they once knew and the nightmare they never saw coming. You're not hunting them, they're just finally realizing they're standing in a place they don't belong anymore. You outgrew their cage, shattered their labels, and walked out of their reach without looking back. You don't need revenge. You're not petty. You're precise. The universe did the dirty work for you. It let time expose them, let guilt rot them from the inside. And while they rot, you rise, unshaken, unreachable, unapologetic. Because here's the truth they can't swallow. The moment they left you for dead was the moment you were reborn. They didn't bury you, they planted you. And now they're watching something grow they can't prune, can't poison, can't pull from the roots. A force, a phenomenon, something wild and uncontainable that carries the scars of every no, every closed door, every back turned in silence. And yet, you didn't become bitter. You became better. Meaner, yes, but focused, disciplined, ruthless with your peace. Now your silence screams louder than their praise ever could. Your presence is heavier than their approval. You don't seek crowds. You make the earth shift when you walk. They ask what happened to you, but you know the real question is, what happened to them when they saw what you've become? Because when people realize the fire they lit didn't burn you down, it forged you into something they fear. That's when the silence becomes deafening. That's when the apologies come too late. That's when they understand. You never needed their validation. You only needed their abandonment. Because that was the match and you were always the fire. You learned to breathe in the dark. Now they're choking in your light and they won't survive it. Like, comment, and subscribe.